Hey, what's up, everybody? Lord
Hi.
of the Woods here, Josh.
So we back. Damon.
So, we're back here doing some more views. Well, not views, but we're gonna be watching some
Right?
more Bigfoot videos.
For sure. Yeah. And
Just
this
tell you
right
what our
here
opinion
is
is.
some more of the more terrifying sightings on here.
Yeah,
So
3 terrifying Bigfoot
yeah,
encounters we're gonna watch.
right. So man, we just watched Expedition Bigfoot, y'all.
Yeah, it was a great episode.
Dang, that was
Great.
nuts. Man, they had infrared drones. I mean, they had drones with infrared technology on it. They could see heat, cold, all that. It was nuts, man. And then
That's
they
true.
spotted some stuff. They spotted actual movement. It was crazy, man. Crazy footage, man. I need to see that.
Yeah, it definitely was crazy for sure. A lot of heat signatures
It's,
on that
it's like,
thermals.
proof, you know what I'm saying, that there's something out there, you
Yeah,
know? And they I don't know. It's like a whole different type of civilization, like.
Yeah.
And then we also saw some areas that they found where they were like kind of socializing, where they all gathered
Yeah.
and eat and stuff.
Like a table, but on the floor of the woods.
Crazy, man. Yeah, you know how big people eat.
Congregation of the Sasquatch.
Real. Man, they got a real nice footprint. I think it was like, what, 14, 15 inches long, something like
Yeah.
that, from heel to toe, and like 6 inches wide.
Right.
Okay, that's nuts, man.
Yeah. By the way, we got a few new sounds we've added to the stream. We have this one, which is
Oh, that's tight.
then we have this new one. Still a bit longer one, but we have this one as well. This is
Wait a
from
minute, which one was that one from?
the Sierra Sounds.
Yeah.
It's from the Sierra Sounds. And I think we should have had this on the last stream. Just a little bit of Mazagrel. I think what we should do on here is we should do,
Crazy.
like, if we think it's, like, each video, if we think it's something, we hit a button that says, like, the first one could be, it was really good, or the second one just kind of like, mediocre. Or be like, I'm gonna do 2 of these. You know what I mean?
Yeah, y'all. Yes, y'all. We stay fresh, y'all. But all right, man. Let's do this thing.
Now let's watch this
We're
video.
gonna get up in this thing. Show y'all something. All right.
Well, show us some Bigfoots. That's what we're here for.
Deep within
Allegedly.
America's forests, something
allegedly.
ancient and predatory watches us.
Whoa!
Three
it's a brain
separate
loss
witnesses ventured into the wilderness believing they were alone, but they discovered
That's
the
crazy.
terrifying truth. They each encountered a bipedal creature that most believe doesn't exist. Their testimonies have been systematically
Yeah, beard like me.
dismissed,
Yeah.
ridiculed
longer.
by scientists,
up,
His
and
looks better.
buried by mainstream media. What you're about to hear has been deliberately hidden
Yeah, just
from
look
the
at
public
blob.
because the truth
You know what I'm
about
saying?
what stalks
Yeah.
our woods would shatter everything
blob.
we think we know about the natural world. These
Just a
are
blob,
three
man.
true, terrifying eyewitness
Yeah.
accounts from those who've seen the impossible. You won't want to
Yeah.
miss this one.
Oh, yeah,
On the
this is
evening
from
of
What
February
Lurks Beneath
1st,
Y'all.
2024, a hunter named MK had arrived at the Spring Creek Canyon
Okay,
Trail,
sounds like-
located in a
Ooh,
remote
yeah.
section of state game lands within Center County, Pennsylvania. It was already very dark since the sun had set at around 5:30, and being a student at Penn State University, MK was always thankful to be out on trips like this where he could
Oh, I
hunt
heard you
raccoons
crunching.
in peace without having
Huh?
to worry about real
Oh.
life problems in school. He set up his
Okay, I like
Predator
chips.
Hunter
That's a
Fox
good
Pro
ass mic.
Patriot with raccoon sounds to attract
tight.
them. And the area was nearly pitch
What are
black,
they
with the
anyway?
creek running through a semi-canyon that blocked most
Ooh,
of
get a
the
couple
ambient
new
light.
things.
While he
Yeah,
was
Rich Man
playing
Feta.
these
So-
raccoon
So
calls,
good.
MK started
Yeah,
hearing
we're
some
higher than
unusual
chip shop.
sounds near the creek. It was kind of like this plap, plap, plap noise that was happening about every
Good.
30 or
Yeah.
so seconds. It didn't sound like normal water. It seemed like it was
I love
being
kettle
caused
chips, they're
by
so good.
something large. And after playing the calls for about 4 minutes, MK decided to leave because he was feeling increasingly uncomfortable. While walking back toward his
Well, you know,
vehicle, he stopped to
There's
shine his
something leaving
spotlight
an
toward the
impush,
creek,
an
and he caught a
impression.
glimpse of what looked
You know
like
what
a
I'm saying?
black silhouette on the
Yeah.
opposite bank
footprint.
before it disappeared into the brush. At the time, he dismissed it as his imagination or that maybe he was simply overreacting. And shortly after leaving, he
Like his
pulled
mic.
over at the fish hatchery entrance and stepped out of his truck to retrieve his phone from his vest pocket. Suddenly, a small stone came out of nowhere from the darkness, and the rock hit the ground right near his feet and kind of skittered right under his truck.
Oh, they do.
MK immediately dove back into the front seat of his truck and quickly drove away. And that was the first moment he realized that something might have been stalking him, though he wasn't sure what. Now, even after those
creepy.
experiences,
Yeah.
MK eventually dismissed them and returned to the game lands on February 19th, nearly 3 weeks later. This time, he went to a different section altogether.
Oh, shit.
Wait, is this you when trying to build a website?
Sorry, people,
Because
we
I
don't
got
have
you.
YouTube Premium here.
Oh, check
What?
out Bluehost. They have an
YouTube
AI
Premium.
site creator that
Oh,
makes it
okay.
a breeze. Build your
Yeah,
own
it's
professional
very
looking
good.
site in minutes. All you have to do is type in some details about your business.
Because
and
what
the AI
YouTube
site
Premium
creator will
does
generate 3 awesome designs for you to start with.
Is
Then-
that you don't have to
The
watch ads.
southwestern side that you access via Rock Road, and he parked at a roadside pull-off around 5:20. It was in the mid to low 20s Fahrenheit, overcast, no wind, and he crossed the foot-deep Spring Creek wearing chest-high fishing waders. He entered the thick forest and began broadcasting predator calls.
Hmm.
He didn't observe any animal activity, so he decided to head back toward the creek. Along the way, he discovered a small animal trail that roughly paralleled the waterway. And by 6:10,
Mm.
almost all the daylight was
Mhm.
gone since the sun had set at roughly 5:51. The forest canopy blocked what little ambient light remained. Once he reached a location with a small bridge and exposed rock face, the ground cover was very sparse.
For
But
sure, man.
the pine canopy above
look
was
like a headache.
extraordinarily
Mhm.
dense. He was standing beside this rock face when he turned west to head back along the creek, and the darkness was really starting to make him feel anxious.
For sure.
After passing the rock face, he heard a single solid wood knock
Crazy,
at
man.
what would be his 8 o'clock position, and he described the sound as a bat giving a tree a nice firm tap. Despite feeling nervous, he just continued walking, trying his best to stay calm.
Careful,
He had encountered bears before, and he knew that running would simply trigger a predator response, so he kept his cool. And
Right.
he pulled out his spotlight and began scanning the forest around him, and then he heard something slowly and surely paralleling his path. He could hear ice and twigs crunching beneath what sounded like deliberate footsteps,
You know what I'm saying?
and the sound was
Yeah.
coming from the direction of the wood
For sure.
knocking. And he kept turning to look behind him with the spotlight, and at one point, he caught a brief
Yeah.
glimpse of something large and upright
That make no
that would
sense.
disappear behind a tree. And so, quickly thinking, he pulls out his phone, calls his friend, and he's like, "Get your AR and get your butt out here now. This is nuts." And
He
his
said
voice the
AR.
entire time was just
Yeah.
cracking with fear. And of course, his friend initially laughed, but then realized how serious MK sounded. At this point in the situation, MK was basically trapped at a creek choke point with thorn bushes all around, because going forward would force him deeper into the forest, and turning back meant facing whatever animal was following him. So he was standing with his back to these thorns, facing south into the darkness, with his shotgun in one hand and his spotlight in the other,
Ain't that something?
his phone on speaker
Mhm.
in his vest. While scanning the forest with his spotlight, the light caught something. It was standing just 40 yards away, partially
man.
concealed behind a pine
Look at that,
tree,
man.
and MK would later
Like a
compare its
ghoul.
face to King Kong, but with a sharper nose and less flared nostrils. The
Hmm.
medium gray skin had this wispy, lighter gray hair around the face, and even the head wasn't cone-shaped,
Dang,
but sloped
okay.
and rounded like a human's, with this tuft of hair on top and what even looked like a hint of a receding hairline. There was little to no eye shine
That is
despite
crazy,
direct
man.
spotlight on its face. And the jaw was not sharp like a human's, but it was more rounded with a kind of blocky chin. And this thing was also massive in its arms
You
and
got a
shoulders.
Homer
It looked
Simpson.
absolutely jacked. And after those brief seconds of eye contact, this thing just retreated behind the tree, and MK was freaking out on the phone with his friend, and he forced himself backward through the thorny brush toward the creek, struggling through the entangling brambles to reach the waterway. He was relieved that he didn't get torn up too bad by the thorns, and he splashed his way across the shallow creek to the opposite bank, and then scrambled up the embankment to Rock Road and quickly retreated to his vehicle and got
Wow,
the
right.
heck out of Dodge. He realized at that moment that
He
he
got
was
out of Dodge.
potentially
Yeah.
dealing with some sort of alpha predator, and he fled the area and abandoned any hope of
Boy, that
returning.
house is scary.
But not long after this incident, Not knowing where to turn, he reported this to a Bigfoot researcher named Benjamin. And Benjamin made some interesting observations about MK during their discussion. The first being that MK came across as earnest and very credible, that he had no history of making false reports or seeking attention, and he'd been visiting these specific game lands since January. Secondly, the investigator who interviewed him was actually familiar with the location. He had lived in the area for 2 years and had explored the exact spot where the sighting had occurred. The environment was perfectly suited to conceal a large, undocumented species. It's part of the ridge and valley region of the Appalachians, specifically the Northern Limestone Valley ecoregion. Interestingly, the area had also been recently stocked with 400 pheasants that hunters mysteriously couldn't seem to locate. Benjamin believed that the local Bigfoot population migrated from the ridges to the lowlands in winter because the lowlands simply provided abundant food, water, and shelter. But to make matters even stranger is that this wasn't the first report from the area. Another sighting had occurred at nearby Bald Eagle State Park in 2020, just 10 minutes away from the current encounter location. The area is connected to vast northern wilderness, including Black Moshannon State Park and additional game lands. Is it possible that what MK encountered that night was something that's been hiding away in the wilderness of North America, or was it simply a fabrication? The case remains open as one of Pennsylvania's most detailed recent encounters. At approximately 11:30 p.m. on October 20th, 2024, a 39-year-old Army combat engineer veteran named Lacey the Boy was sitting around a campfire with his brother Michael Eagleman, Michael's wife, and Lacey's girlfriend at a secluded picnic area on Montana's Rocky Boy Reservation. This spot was very familiar to all of them. It was basically just a clearing surrounded by forest, but the vegetation wasn't too thick, making it the perfect place to relax under the clear Montana night sky. Earlier that evening, the four of them had decided to drive out to this informal picnic area on Sandy Creek Road. When they had arrived, they noticed some trash and beer bottles scattered around, but that was pretty normal for the spot. And so Michael and Lacey just immediately began gathering wood to build a campfire while the women stayed near the truck. Both Lacey and Michael had watched a lot of episodes of Finding Bigfoot, and they thought it might be fun to try some of the techniques they'd seen on the show. Now, Lacey had never believed in Bigfoot. I mean, to him, all those videos online were obviously fake, or maybe they were just representations of some kind of Native American spirit thing. He definitely wasn't the type to buy into cryptid stories or conspiracies. I mean, after all, he was a combat veteran, and he had served in Afghanistan and spent many hours in the woods. They originally wanted to play some Bigfoot howl recordings from their phones, but they realized they didn't actually have any cell service out there in the remote wilderness. Instead, they decided to try wood knocks, which is when you hit a tree with a stick or branch to try to communicate with Bigfoot. Michael started testing different trees with a branch, trying to find one that would make a particularly loud, resonant knock. He finally found a good one and started making these loud knocking sounds. They were just having fun with it, not actually expecting anything to happen. But within about a minute of Michael making these knocks, something completely unexpected occurred. Up ahead on the hillside, they both noticed eye shine. Two sets of bluish-white eyes that almost seemed to glow in the darkness, roughly 25 feet away from where they were standing. Lacey and Michael were curious but not really alarmed. I mean, they had seen plenty of wildlife before, so Lacey walked back to the truck to grab his really bright flashlight, while Michael, without Lacey realizing it, began filming with his phone. Lacey just thought his brother was using the phone as another light source, but the two men then walked toward where they had seen the eyes, sweeping their lights across the forest. At first, they found nothing there, and they were about to dismiss it as just some deer or other animal. But then, they heard the distinct footsteps and the snapping of branches further up the slope. Lacey then pointed his powerful flashlight beam in that direction, and standing there, partially hidden behind a tree but clearly visible in the flashlight beam, was what could only be described as a Bigfoot. Lacey froze in place,
I don't think
unable
that's real,
to
bro.
process what he was
That's
seeing,
normal for you.
and he best described it as a
For
huge
real.
black gorilla that it also looked like a man. It was massive, 8 to 9 feet tall, black skin and hair all over its body. But the strangest part was that the hair appeared combed and clean, like the thing took care of itself. And one detail that immediately struck Lacey was that, unlike all the stories he'd heard about Bigfoot's notorious
He's not
stench,
hairy at
he
all.
couldn't smell anything at all coming from this thing. There was no odor whatsoever, which
What?
seemed odd given how close they were to it. And its physique was unlike anything he'd ever seen. You could clearly make out its six-pack abs, a huge chest, and its massive arms. I mean, this thing was in peak physical condition, like some kind of bodybuilder, but much, much larger. And as Lacey and Michael stood there, just frozen in disbelief, it actually put something in its mouth. Lacey thought maybe it was some kind of food, and then after, staring directly at the men for several long seconds, it simply turned and began walking away.
Hazelnut, meat chocolate,
It's like
crispy, meat cream, irresistible, bueno.
These things I've
It
seen
wasn't
these
running
things
or
before,
even
but really-
hurrying, it just
I'm out.
calmly walked away like it wasn't concerned
Hell,
about them at
yeah.
all. This strangely peaceful moment was shattered by screams coming from the truck. Michael's wife had spotted the thing from her window and was panicking. Hearing her screams,
wow.
Lacey and Michael immediately ran back to the vehicle to check on the women. Once they were all inside the truck, they just sat there staring in the direction where they'd seen this thing. Michael was continuing to film from the passenger seat, sitting up on the window rail so he could record over the top of the pickup, and Lacey was in the back passenger seat behind the driver with his girlfriend beside him. Both Lacey and Michael's wife had their windows rolled down, and that's when the situation got a whole lot worse.
Oh, great.
Lacey's brother's wife and him both saw something very large and brown quickly crawling toward them. She starts screaming hysterically, and Lacey just starts yelling, "Go, go, go!" Michael's wife frantically started the engine while Lacey was desperately trying to roll up his window. At the same time, he was pressing himself against his girlfriend, terrified that whatever was approaching might reach through the open window and grab him.
Oh,
They sped away as fast as they could, only stopping once they had reached what felt like a safe distance from the forest. There, everyone still shaking from the adrenaline, they tried to rationalize what had
Got
just
worse.
happened, thinking, did we really just see that? Now, the video Michael had captured was their only evidence, and until they reviewed it together, Lacey hadn't even realized his brother had been recording the entire time. The group was hesitant to share it because they were worried about being ridiculed. And instead of directly
See that
releasing
there
it,
was some
they
eyes in
opted to give it to a professional editor and let them brighten it up and, enhance it, because if they did it themselves, well, people would just assume they were faking it all for attention. And their story would eventually reach BFRO investigator Matthew Moneymaker, who personally interviewed each of them and confirmed that they were very credible Chippewa Cree
What
tribal
last name
members
is that?
and took their
Moneymaker.
account very seriously.
yeah.
Now, something to note that makes this really interesting is the context of where this took place. It was in the Rocky Boy Reservation, which covers over 170 square miles of mostly untouched woods, including substantial mountain terrain. And most of this land sees virtually no human activity throughout the year. As Michael explained to Matthew, the mountains in this area are incredibly rich with resources like various kinds of berries, not
Yeah.
to mention it supports a healthy population of bears, deer, elk, moose. This is not an area that gets overhunted
yeah.
and remains full of wildlife. Now, even stranger is that there was an incident back in the 1960s or 70s where a Bigfoot allegedly picked up a school bus and threw it down into a coulee, which is like a deep ravine. The event was significant enough to be reported in newspapers at the time, and interestingly, Michael's grandfather had actually been a child on that very bus when it happened.
Wow.
The video, though difficult to see clearly, was authenticated by multiple witnesses who saw the creature much more distinctly in person. And as for Lacey, he stands by the fact that even after going to war in Afghanistan, he had never been more frightened in his life than he had that night standing in front of that thing. At around 2:15 in the morning on November 8th, 2024,
Right.
a woman who worked in food service at a local prison was driving down a deserted mountain road in Buchanan County, Virginia. She was running late for her shift that morning, which wasn't normal for her because usually she was pretty punctual, but on this morning, she had fallen behind schedule, so she was driving a little faster than she normally would. And the road she was on was called Page Road,
Right?
and it ran right near the main gate of these abandoned coal mines. This was a route she knew very well because she drove it 4 or 5 days a week at this exact same early hour. Her job required her to leave home before 2 to get to the prison kitchen on time to start preparing breakfast for the inmates. But before working at the prison, she had actually been an Army supply specialist, so she was very disciplined and very observant. She'd been raised in the area and was very familiar with the flora and fauna, bears, deer, all that, and even these feral cattle that roamed around. And speaking of which, these cattle had actually been released years earlier after the family patriarch who owned them had died and nobody else really wanted to take care of the animals. So as she's driving down Page Road on this night, which she also noted was unusually warm for November, she rounds a bend and her headlights illuminate something beside the road. And at her first glance, she assumes it's probably a bear or maybe one of those feral cattle because it wouldn't exactly be unusual. And so she starts to slow down and gets closer to avoid hitting this animal. And she starts to realize that there's many things about it that that aren't right. That what she thought was a bear clearly isn't a bear, and it's definitely not a cow. And now at this point, she's roughly about 20 feet away from this thing, and she can see it clearly in her headlights. What she's looking at is this massive figure that's in a kneeling position. And it's clearly on 2 legs, and she could see its knee joints. And it's looking over its shoulder while holding a part of some brush with its hands, and it appears to be hunting 2 deer that are about 20 yards away from it. And as her headlights illuminate this scene, it notices her car and it looks directly toward her, then glances back at the brush where the deer are, and then locks eyes with her again, and it's all very deliberate. And then it moves very slyly toward the nearby creek and just disappears in the darkness. The whole entire event lasted maybe 10 seconds, but felt way longer, as you can imagine. And even though she wasn't exactly overcome with terror, she just had this feeling that she wasn't supposed to see that, like she had witnessed something private that was happening in nature. And so she drove past the spot, and she could actually see the 2 deer that this thing had been watching. And she also noticed something really interesting about how this thing had reacted to her presence, because unlike an animal that would typically flee in panic, it had very deliberately and calmly moved to conceal itself. Like it wasn't startled or frightened at all, it was hiding. Now this behavior suggests to her that this probably wasn't the first time this thing had encountered humans or vehicles. But like the other 2 experiences, it was enormous. I mean, she estimated about 4 feet across at the shoulders, and even though it had been crouched down, she could clearly see that it could stand well over 7 feet tall. It was very lean, toned, muscly, not emaciated at all. But remember, it had turned to look at her vehicle and her at least once, and so she got to see its face, and she described it as having a very humanoid face, a very heavy pronounced brow ridge, that the face was very square and blocky with a wide flat nose, and the eyes were spaced unnaturally far apart, at least the diameter of a $50 coin between them. And speaking of its eyes, they didn't have eye shine, which is also very strange. I mean, almost all nocturnal animals reflect light from their eyes when headlights hit them, but when she's looking at this thing initially, she's first thinking, okay, this can't be a Bigfoot. This is probably a poacher wearing a ghillie suit, which is this camouflage outfit that hunters sometimes wear, but she couldn't figure out why anyone would be out there at 2:15 in the morning dressed like that. It just didn't make any sense. And so when she got to work, she told her coworkers about what she had seen. But instead of laughing at her or thinking she was crazy, because remember, she didn't just outright say like, oh, I saw Bigfoot. She just was like, yeah, I had this weird experience on my way to work, and I saw this, maybe a hunter in a ghillie suit, I don't know. And they began to ask questions about the location, and some of them made comments like, yeah, there's weird stuff out there in the woods, which suggested to her that this wasn't the first unusual sighting around here. Now later on, This woman revealed that many people in the area actually do discuss
told them what's going on
Sasquatch
out
or
there right now.
Bigfoot-like creatures,
Yeah.
but they don't formally report it. In fact,
Especially
her
where nobody be
grandparents
at.
even used to call it the woolly booger and would use stories about it as a
The woolly
warning to
booger.
keep children inside at night. Now, we'd come to find out later on that her own mother had even reported seeing a Sasquatch near their family home in Whitewood, Virginia. Now, not long after her experience, she eventually submitted it to the BFRO, or Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, and wouldn't you know it,
Right.
Benjamin, the same investigator who had interviewed MK, also interviewed her for hours. And after talking with her, he
Right.
determined that her account showed remarkable internal consistency, that
Right.
these specific anatomical details she mentioned, like the knee joints, the brow structure, and the
Right,
eye
right.
spacing, were things that would be unlikely for someone to make up if they were just fabricating a story. The
Right.
environmental conditions that
sure.
night, clear skies, good visibility, allowed for a reliable observation. And the woman's background in military and her familiarity with this route enhanced her credibility altogether. And then we think about her actual reaction, that it suggests it was more of a genuine encounter rather than something imagined and amplified by panic. Despite all the information we have about the experience, the identity of the animal she witnessed that night will
crazy,
remain
man.
a mystery.
Imagine
And because
that.
you guys made it to the end, I
Oh,
want you to
no.
all
Wood
comment
booger.
below wood booger, so that way I know who made it to the end of the video and who didn't. And if you guys enjoy storytelling like this,
No,
where we
wood
dive
boogers.
into strange cases of the mysterious and supernatural in a cinematic storytelling
Keep it
fashion,
rolling.
what are you waiting for? Smack that
so,
like and subscribe button for more
Wild
content
Assault.
just like this. As always, never forget, I love you all, keep an open mind, and I'll see you all in the very next episode.
Man, that was crazy.
Yep. What?
Yeah, goodness. Yeah. Yes, does. Yeah.
No, that's not just as it says this.
No, let's go to that screen.
This?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go. So, we just saw 3 crazy encounters, Sean. That first one, I don't know. He was too clean. You know what I'm saying? Too buff for me. You know, they're hairy. I mean,
He's too buff.
I don't know. My mind, from what I see, Bigfoot's like hairy all over. This was like a freaking massive weightlifter or something like that.
Yeah, but I think I think that what you're talking about, I think that was actually just kind of like something just for the video.
That was crazy.
Because that wasn't, I don't think that's, you're supposed to have hair all over, not just like, oh, I'm gonna shave in the wild, like, they have lots of hair, so
Yeah.
they didn't have to do a lot of shaving.
Right. So that one didn't really make too much sense because he was too clean.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I think all in all, though, I think that last one was more believable.
Oh yeah, just from the picture and everything was.
Yeah. That lady was, she, stumbled across an event that just happens in nature. She just happened to witness that thing was out there. He was
Right.
about to get him some food together and take it back home.
Take it back to his family.
Right?
His good old family.
Wow. That was pretty cool, man. Yeah, sit around like that. So where do you want to head to next?
What's that? Oh, Wild Assault. Could be under a subscription for that.
All salts.
Bass salts?
Oh, no, not that. No.
Not bass salts. Oh no.
Man, I remember that. That was out. Man, I can't believe it. They doing what?
Right.
Okay, so let's grab this one and see what we can do.
Let's see. Videos. Videos.
Look, it's our dear friend.
This
Here's how to
Okay, so. Oh yeah, I forgot to rate the last one. I think it was 1, 2, 3 growls. That's what I think.
Give it 3 growls. That's what's up. 3 growls it is. So, second y'all.
tap in.
That's what's up. Sorry about that, y'all. Let's try to figure this out. Okay, let's see.
Back to
Into
Bill's
Amazon's
Blizzard.
billion-dollar book market using AI in 4
Amazon's
steps.
billion-dollar
All right,
book
step 1,
market.
go to
Let's skip it.
Amazon and search for books that are selling at
Let's take a look at some newly captured images of a juvenile Bigfoot, taken by a man named Jack during a camping and fishing trip in the woods. He snapped these photos at the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness in northern Michigan, a place he often visited with his father. They cherished their time together, enjoying fishing and camping in nature. However, this particular trip would leave a lasting impression on them, and not for the best reasons.
Michigan.
Look at that.
Yep, you can see it right there. Standing
The
up.
photos gained attention in early September 2024. An analyst specializing in Bigfoot sightings commented, "We've seen many Bigfoot photographs, but this one is among the best we've encountered in some time." They noted that the creature's upright stance suggests it is not a bear, and that its shape appears more humanoid, as bears don't resemble this. Jack recounted that he and his father had just reached their campsite that day. While setting up, he went to collect firewood, during which he encountered the creature and quickly took pictures with his phone. Initially believing it to be a bear, he realized otherwise when it stood up. He described it as being about his height, as he is 6 feet tall, and noted its oddly human-like appearance. It emitted a high-pitched growl or grumbling sound that he couldn't identify, something he had never heard before. Jack mentioned that he made eye contact with the creature before it swiftly darted back into the forest. These 3 distinct photos are the only evidence supporting the authenticity of his experience. They are quite clear and of good quality, which is often lacking in many Bigfoot sightings and videos. This adds to the intrigue of his account, which is also quite compelling. Fortunately, Jack and his father emerged from this extraordinary encounter unharmed. While Bigfoot is generally believed to be mostly docile, they can be territorial and unpredictable. So it's wise to keep your distance if you ever spot one in the wild. The recordings made by Ron Moorhead in the Sierra Nevada mountains are indeed a significant part of the lore surrounding Bigfoot. Known as the Sierra Sounds, these audio recordings capture a series of strange vocalizations that many enthusiasts and researchers have interpreted as potential evidence of Bigfoot's existence.
Yeah, I remember this one.
There's 2 of them across the creek at the big rocks.
You remember the other day we were watching that Sasquatch Ontario and stuff?
Yeah.
You heard that all that yeah. Well, remember that's the same thing with the other one. You know what I'm saying? Like them hearing all that extra stuff, you know? Pretty cool.
It is, man. It's communication.
Alright, we can play it back out. Alright, sorry people.
Keep it pushing.
Keep it pushing.
That's so crazy. Look at that.
The sounds consist of a variety of deep guttural noises, including howls, screams, and what some describe as a form of chatter. Moorhead and others have suggested that these vocalizations could represent a form of communication among a possible Sasquatch population in the area. Over the years, the recordings have sparked substantial interest and debate within the cryptozoology community, with some arguing that the sounds are indeed from an unknown primate, while others remain skeptical and attribute them to known wildlife or hoaxes. While no definitive proof of Bigfoot has been established, the Sierra Sounds continue to intrigue researchers, enthusiasts, and those curious about the mysteries of the natural world. The recordings have been analyzed and discussed in various media, including documentaries and podcasts, contributing to the ongoing fascination with the elusive creature. In July 2015, independent researchers Teresa and Jeff Alec went to the area of northern Colorado. On the first day, Jeff knocked on a tree and received a response from the forest in the form of a stone knock. However, he was far away, so Jeff didn't pay much attention to him. But in the following days of the hike, he managed to take an intriguing photo that at first glance does not show anything unusual. But if we zoom in, we will see something amazing. It is claimed that this is the face of a snowman, peeking out from behind a tree. And I understand why people are so intrigued. There's definitely a hint of a face here. We can almost make out something like the brow arch, a darker area that could be a nose or muzzle, and even a hint of a mouth. But, and this is a big but, the image is incredibly blurry and low resolution. Canada is certainly a suitable place for Bigfoot sightings. There are numerous reports of sightings in the dense forests of British Columbia and other regions, but the location itself does not confirm the authenticity of the image. Many in the Bigfoot community believe that this may be real, as well as one of the clearest images of a Bigfoot. Others, however, are not completely convinced, arguing that the image looks too much like a human, or is a case of pareidolia, a psychological phenomenon where the mind perceives a familiar pattern of something that doesn't really exist. What do you think? Is this a picture of Bigfoot? Is this a hoax? The couple, excited to be outdoors with their dog, felt a mix of exhilaration and unease as they continued their hike. The serene landscape around them was suddenly interrupted by the appearance of the large, dark figure on the distant mountain.
Estoy viendo algo que se mueve por esta parte de ahí. Algo de color negro. Parece una persona, pero se mueve medio raro.
Initially dismissing it as a trick of the light, or perhaps a boulder, their curiosity was piqued when they realized the figure was moving. They pulled out their phone to capture the moment, recording the unclear footage that would soon ignite a flurry of online speculation. As the video spread across social media, viewers were divided. Some insisted it was merely another hiker, perhaps wearing dark clothing, while others suggested it was something far more enigmatic. If it were just a person, one commenter remarked, we should see more details, like clothing or colors. The ambiguity of the footage only added fuel to the fire of Bigfoot theories, with many noting the figure's unusual gait and the way it seemed to blend into the natural surroundings. This astonishing Bigfoot sighting was first captured in 2009, but it only gained attention again on January 9th, 2025. The video is titled "Deer Being Stalked by a Bigfoot." A man was hiking when he stumbled upon a long gravel path. Upon reaching the clearing, he noticed a group of deer standing there, captivated by the scene, and he began filming them. That's when a massive, unidentified figure made its presence known.
Your favorites are returning to spill it all.
It's a reunion show, Mommy.
Crazy.
Surprise guest. Watch Responsibility Island, the reunion episode.
Nah, I don't know about that, man.
It appears that this Bigfoot-like creature was stalking the deer, as the animals were clearly aware of its presence, turning their heads to follow its movements. The dark figure paused and stared down the path for about 5 or 6 seconds before walking away, leaving both the hiker and the deer bewildered. As it departed, the sheer size of the creature became apparent. It had a broad back, long arms, and seemed to be covered in dark fur. However, skeptics dispute these claims, suggesting that the alleged Bigfoot is merely a large person who happened to walk onto the path. They argue that when you pause and zoom in on the video, you can see the figure wearing a dark sweatshirt. Others, however, remain convinced that this is indeed a Sasquatch, pointing to its distinctive walking style, swinging arms, and overall appearance. It's certainly a fascinating debate. What do you think? Is it just a person, or could it genuinely be a Bigfoot observing the deer and the hiker? Share your thoughts in the comments below. This brand new Bigfoot footage originates from Stark County, Ohio, though the exact location within the county remains unclear. Stark County is relatively small and features numerous wooded areas. One notable spot is Jackson Township, which is home to the Jackson State Bog Nature Preserve, a unique wetland habitat covering 58 acres. Another significant area is the Wilderness Center, a nonprofit nature center focused on conservation and education, managing around 650 acres in Stark County with a variety of habitats, including forests, prairies, streams, and ponds. Beyond these preserves, Stark County has various parks and green spaces that offer forested areas for recreation and wildlife observation, making it possible for this encounter to have occurred in any of these locations. Now, onto the video.
Yeah, it's crazy. Listen to that, man. Hear that?
What I'm recording right now sounds very similar to what I heard back in 1991 or 92.
The man was exploring the Ohio woods when he started hearing unusual, high-pitched whooping sounds. There are no known animals in Ohio that could produce this type of noise. Experts analyzed the audio from the video, filtering out background sounds to provide a clearer audio sample. Take a listen.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You'll know, man, next time you're out there in the woods and you hear that.
It's certainly
No
peculiar,
owl.
while Sasquatch
Yeah.
sightings tend to be more frequent in the densely wooded regions of southeastern and eastern Ohio. There have been reports from the northeastern part as well. Salt Fork State Park in Guernsey County is perhaps the most renowned site for Bigfoot activity in Ohio. This expansive park spans over 177,000 acres and is a popular destination for hikers and campers, many of whom have encountered strange noises, wood knocks, and even sightings of a large bipedal creature. Numerous intriguing videos have also surfaced from this area. Additionally, a haunting recording captured in Columbiana County, Ohio, in 1994 is one of the most well-known pieces of potential Bigfoot evidence. Wildlife Sound and Bigfoot research experts have examined the audio, with some believing it resembles other reported Sasquatch vocalizations, while skeptics argue it could be an unidentified animal. This is quite similar to the sounds in the new video from Stark County. What do you think? Could there be Bigfoots lurking in Ohio's forests? Given the history in this recent video, it certainly seems plausible. In June 2008, while rafting on the Mackenzie River, tourists managed to film something strange. Let's take a look. Looking at the left side of the frame, we can make out a humanoid creature. I definitely see the absence of a pronounced neck and creature. You can also make out hands on the frames, a suitable pose for Bigfoots. When I visited that area before, it was about the year 2014, and a lot of people I managed to talk to had met Bigfoots in that area or near the Mackenzie River in one way or another. The Dean and other indigenous peoples living in the Mackenzie River area have long talked about a large ape-like creature that roams the forests. These stories often describe a creature known as Naha, which is said to inhabit remote areas along the river. Such stories often emphasize the elusive nature of this creature and its connection to the spiritual world. Or is it just a case of the mind seeing something that isn't really there? A few months ago, Raven Love 11 was spending quality time with her family in their backyard in North Carolina when they encountered something truly bizarre, an event they can only describe as one of the most sinister experiences ever. They managed to capture it all on video, and here's what transpired.
Here's what transpired.
I don't see anything.
What the heck? It's like there's something up there.
That's scary, man.
Oh yeah.
Oh, no, look at it, come on. Come on, come on, come on. No.
At the start of the video, it appears that something is hanging from a tree, moving from one side to the other. I also noticed there's no wind, though I could be mistaken. What do you think is happening here? In this intriguing trail cam image, we see what appears to be a tall, dark, humanoid figure standing amidst thick vegetation. The figure has a broad, muscular build covered in black, shaggy fur, with a profile that strongly resembles the descriptions of Bigfoot reported for decades. At first glance, the creature's posture and stance suggest intelligence and awareness. This isn't an animal on all fours, but something standing upright, surveying its surroundings. The proportions of the figure, particularly the long arms and the bulky upper body, align with classic Sasquatch reports. Its head appears to be slightly pointed, a feature often mentioned in eyewitness accounts. Could this be a person in a costume? That's always a possibility, but if so, it would have to be an exceptionally well-made suit. The natural blending of the fur with the environment and the lack of visible seams suggests something more than just a cheap hoax. Additionally, trail cams typically capture animals, not stage setups, so unless this was planted by someone looking for attention, the credibility of the shot remains high. Ultimately, while this photo is compelling, more evidence is needed to confirm its authenticity. A series of photos from different angles, footprints in the area, or even DNA evidence would be ideal to support the claim that this is indeed a genuine Bigfoot sighting. What do you think? Could this be the real Sasquatch? Let us know in the comments below. A man riding an ATV in Frog Lake, Alberta, Canada, shoots a big black Bigfoot on camera. In autumn, in Frog Lake Forest, Alberta, Canada, a local blogger recorded a snowman running across the road. Let's take a look.
He sees it right there. Man, look how big that motherfucker is, dude.
You guys huge.
He's like, you gotta see this, bruh.
What's up? Can I catch a ride?
A man driving along his route saw a black figure in the bushes in the distance. Stopping, he recorded how a two-legged creature runs across the road. Taking a closer look, we can see its hairiness and the accuracy with which this creature moves with its feet. In the end, the creature managed to hide in the forest. I would like to see your opinion in the comments.
There's nothing more powerful.
Oh, wow. Well, once again, the last one on that one was tight too. Let's tell y'all, man. I'm a true believer on that one. I believe something is out there, dude, for real.
There definitely is. I really think there definitely is some out there. For sure.
Oh no, man.
We've been recording for about close to an hour, I think.
Yeah.
Let me double check. I think we've been.
Well, beyond. It's definitely been a real hoot. Looking at Bigfoot videos and stuff like that, you know. I don't know. Kind of on the edge about a couple of those, but you know that last one was nice. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't even check how long.
What?
It's right here. Oh, yeah, almost an hour. Oh, an hour, but yeah. So I think pretty intriguing stuff that we've been seeing. I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was a little short stream, but we might stream sometime this weekend, maybe. Do another stream.
Right.
Maybe a little bit longer, maybe. Kind of sucks. They don't have a new Expedition Bigfoot, which kind of sucks because I was hoping to see some more stuff on that. See where they're getting closer and closer.
Yeah.
For sure.
Ever so close.
Ever so close to finally revealing Bigfoot. Just imagine what's gonna happen when that happens. It's gonna be all over the news. It's gonna be like mainstream media
definitely.
for a couple days or whatever.
They know it, man. Finally, it's like Bigfoot.
Right?
Yeah, so.
Yeah, we'll get back at it sometime this weekend, probably. But hopefully you all have a great night. We'll see you guys on the flip side.
All right. Peace out. Don't forget, subscribe. Over the Woods.
That's right. Subscribe.
Yeah.
Even though if there's nobody watching, you can watch it back.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just do this.
Oh, I thought he was going to do the outro one.
We don't have an outro.